what makes us who we are. And of course, like we all know, AEHRP is a network of HR professionals committed to raising the standard of people management and organizational leadership. Now, our vision is simple but bold, right? To be the go-to source of competent HR professionals who redefine the practice. Now, our mission is to create tangible value for HR professionals and organizations through coaching, mentoring, and research-based learning. Now, every session we hold is intentionally designed to move the needle on your competence and credibility. And of course, today's session is one that is very much dedicated to doing all that we have just mentioned through our vision and mission statement. Now, moving on very quickly, for those of us that are not new to the AEHRP family, and for those of us that are new, it's important that we remind everyone about our biggest event of the calendar, which is the 9th AEHRP Annual Conference, which is themed Beyond Strategy, Activating Human Capital for Sustainable Growth and Performance. And of course, the dates are locked in November 19th to the 21st, 2026. First 2 days, November 19th and 20th, are virtual learning sessions with global industry experts, of course. And of course, the 21st of November, we'll have our physical gala and awards night live in Victoria Island, Lagos. Now, registration is officially open. Please kindly visit aehrp.org/conference to register. Of course, you don't want to wait. Secure your spot early to be part of this landmark event. And also, if you have or know colleagues or professionals who would benefit from being a part of a learning-driven community like the AEHRP, please invite them to join. Kindly scan the QR code on your screen right now and register. Membership registration is available also via aehrp.org. And while the processing period is approximately, say, 6 to 8 weeks, but of course, for those of us that are members already, you know the value of being part of this network of shameless learners, like to call ourselves. Also, don't forget to follow our AEHRP handles across all our social media platforms so you can stay updated on learning sessions, research insights, and community activities. All right. So back to today's conversation. Of course, our summit today is themed Great Leadership, the impetus for human capital and national development. And of course, if there's been a time to have this conversation, it is now. And of course, because everywhere we look in organizations, institutions, communities, and even in our nation, Nigeria, we are seeing the consequences of leadership. The quality of leadership is shaping the quality of workplaces that we work in. And of course, the quality of opportunities that we are exposed to as humans and individuals as well. And of course, from the HR perspective, you're looking at the quality of talent retention and the quality of governance. And ultimately, as a nation, we're looking at national progress as well. So today's conversation is not just another HR conversation, of course. We're going to be interrogating leadership. We're going to make a call to responsibility. And of course, beyond strategies, beyond structures, beyond performance metrics and business outcomes, like we typically say within the business, every nation eventually rises or falls on the quality of the leadership reproduced within its institutions. And like we all say, HR sits at the very center of that reality. And so today we're going to be asking very difficult and necessary questions. Are we truly developing leaders? Are organizations genuinely building people? Are HR leaders exercising courage? And what happens to national development when leadership inside organizations quietly fail? Now, before we begin, officially today's conversation, I would like to acknowledge that this summit has been intentionally designed as a conversational leadership experience, right? We're not here for a lecture, right? This is a leadership dialogue, and we're not here to give speeches or speak in abstract, right? And at this point, I would like to invite the first vice president of the Association of Elite Human Resource Professionals, AEHRP, Mr. Mudrotoluwa Ajayi, to give us an overview of the summit and share the thinking and strategic intent behind this very important convening. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Mudrotoluwa Ajayi.
Thank you so much, Prince. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Yes, thank you so much. So excited. Before I start, can I just ask that we all use our emoji to show our excitement level? I would just like to know our excitement level today. Please use your emojis. Let's see how expectant you are about today's session. I'm telling you, I'm excited. I'm excited because of the kind of conversation I believe we're going to be having today. And just pretty simply different from what we used to have or what we've been used to as our regular learning, as the case may be. But today is going to be different. And the reason is that anything that touches leadership, right, touches the fabric of nation building, development, call it whatever you want to call it, anything that touches leadership is crucial either to a particular strata. You could, for example, take a family. For example, you could take the organization, and of course, by extension, the nation, as the case may be. And so I believe that tonight or this morning or this afternoon, wherever you're joining from, there will be things you will learn today that will sort of shift your perspective or maybe give visibility to certain things that you ought to have recognized heretofore, right? You will agree with me, or if you do not know, human capital is a foundation of, or I would say a foundational engine of national development. So what that means is that at the heart of nation building, at the heart of national development or human capital development, or at the heart of national development is human capital, right? And leadership sits at the forefront of that. What that means is that if we get leadership right, and one of the things I believe this summit will be addressing is that if we get leadership right, or if we begin to understand leadership prospectively, as human resource practitioners, as business leaders in our different organizations, we will be able to link human capital, right, and national development, knowing fully well that what we do, how we exercise leadership, and how we either encourage leadership or how we engineer leadership within our organizations would affect or have a way, or maybe there will be a correlation with national development, as the case may be. And so, of course, again, this particular summit couldn't have happened at such a strategic time, as it were, today in Nigeria, as some of the things that is currently going on. And so we believe that conversationally, we want to introspect to leadership, and we're hoping that by the end of this session, in the next 1 hour and maybe 1.5 hours, that we will have a different lens at leadership, or we will begin to look at leadership in a way that we've not looked at before. A couple of weeks ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago, yeah, I believe about 2 weeks ago, a business leader in this country made a statement that sent the nation, as it were, or internet, agog, and there were lots of things being said, people having different perspective, and that was on the subject of talent in a sense. But I want to begin to look in a way to say that I think that if we do not really take the subject of leadership very crucial from a standpoint of human capital, this country, this nation is going to be in a bigger problem that business leader did mention. I would say that we have been right? We have been in a state where leadership across all strata, and I don't know if this is something you're also experiencing in your organization, that you would see that the level of leadership, right, from those who are key decision makers and those whom you should grow to become key decision makers, that gap seems to be widened. That means that if that analogy is true, that means that we will have an instance where people stay longer, not because they want to, but because there's a dearth of leadership and people are not really rising up to the occasion. And so I believe that this is one of the things that this summit will be addressing. It's going to be conversational. I believe that we are in good hands of our moderator, Prince Obiako. And so I would like to just say welcome once again. Please do encourage your colleagues, your friends, your mentees, wherever they are. Share the link with them. Let them join this session. I believe that whatever will be said today, or some of the things that will be mentioned today, they will learn from it, and it will shift the perspective in linking human capital with national development. On that juncture, I would like to yield the floor to Prince as he moderates this session. All right, happy listening, and let's have a fantastic summit. Prince, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moduritolua Ajayi. Of course, you've reminded us of how critical leadership is, and I believe this has set the perfect tone for today's conversation, right? And I would like to welcome everybody once again. I see the room is getting a lot fuller and fuller, and very soon we will be hitting capacity. So like I mentioned earlier, if at any point you find yourself outside this room, please, if you're redirected to the YouTube channel, kindly join, and the conversation continues both here on Zoom and on YouTube. At this juncture, I would like to invite some of our speakers that will be joining this conversation. Like I said, we're not here to make speeches. We're not here to talk abstract. We're here to have real conversations and practical conversations. And of course, all our participants are not left out in joining this conversation. If at any point you would like to join the conversation, you can use the raise hand feature. And for those that have questions, please use the chat box, and then we will get to your questions. All right. Please, I would like to invite Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi, FCIPM, as he would be one of our lead conversationists in today's Leadership Summit. Also, if we have Dr. Michael Ogu on ground, please kindly join us. You can turn on your video and unmute, and then we'll welcome you officially. Also, Kumbi Adioti, FCIPM, please join the conversation as we begin to dissect today's topic. Also, Sheyi Olulade, I believe you're in the room as well. Kindly turn on your video and unmute your microphone so we can get right into today's conversation. Let's just spotlight some of our speakers for today, and then we'll get right into it. All right, 1 minute so we can spotlight our speakers. Welcome, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi. Welcome, Madam Oluwaseyi.
Thank you very much, Prince. Good evening
Great.
to all our listeners.
Fantastic. So,
the tribe of shameless leaders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll start the conversation and then we'll have other speakers join us as we go ahead. Of course, what better way to start than on our topic today? So I'll start with you, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi. When you hear the phrase great leadership, right? What does it truly mean to you beyond the corporate cliches that we often hear?
Wow, thank you very much, Prince. Again, good evening, listeners. When I talk about or look at good or great leadership, beyond the theoretical definition, I focus on people who are able to intentionally develop the capacity of others. People who are not just directing or controlling or trying to focus on outputs, but people who are genuinely interested in how other people's capacities are developed, making others more confident in the things that they're able to do, building courage in other people, such that when those people, leave them, they have the courage, that is better and much more than the way they were before they met such leaders. For me, it's about character, emotion. It's about leaders who have the emotional intelligence to be able to understand the stage of life that the people that they are following them or working with them have. And they're able to put themselves in those people's shoe, hold them by the hand, help them to identify the gaps that they have, and then come in to bridge those gaps by supporting them. Leaders who don't just command respect as a result of the authority that they have, but leaders who are able to influence other people as a result of their genuineness, of their authenticity. That is the way I describe great leaders beyond theoretical definitions. So when I talk about leadership, I'm looking at somebody who is picking someone from nowhere and able to help the person to discover themselves. And then they're able to help other people to shape their life and to be a better version of themselves. So that's the way I would describe a great leader. Prince.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'd like to hear from Madam Seyi Olulade. What does great leadership mean to you? Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you again for having me. Well, great leadership for me is, when I saw the topic, I first said to myself, greatness is relative, right? All I just know is that leadership is one that first is able to identify potential, and not just only identify those potential, is able to help that potential find their bearing, help them to get into their core, then help build them, empower them after building them. And then when you empower them, you enable them, to be able to utilize whatever potentials that they have, and also help them to sustain. So it's not just to identify and then I'm able to put you in that position or identify that position and then I take off. I also am on the sideline to also help you to sustain, to achieve the success. So sum total, great leadership for me means ability to create good and fantastic successors, which means I don't have to be in the front line. I don't have to be seen for me to understand that great leadership as a system has taken place. So great leadership for me then will mean your ability to create a stratified kind of leadership system anywhere you find yourself, whereby everybody understands that leadership is not just positional. Leadership for me is more about the state of mind. It's a mindset thing. So wherever you are, you have the ability to first lead yourself, and you can lead at your own level of contemporaries, and then you can lead vertical, you can lead from behind, you can lead from anywhere. So a great leader is able to enable anybody achieve that mindset. That's what great leadership means to me.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on our theme for today's summit. Madam Kumbi, I would like to hear your thoughts on today's topic. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you all for having me. Shay, it's good to see you. Yemi, good to see you too. So for me, great leadership is the ability to see in a person beyond how they see themselves today. And that capacity to help them to draw out the potential they carry, support them on that journey till they become. And when they have become, you are able to step aside and see that they multiply greatness. That is what great leadership is, because in multiplying greatness, whether you are there or not, they can carry on the baton. They have been inspired by who you are, what you represent, your ability to enable them pick up on capacity building, competency, and utilizing it, not just in terms of competency, but in terms of also relationship building, because great leaders connect. And when they connect, they get to the point where that connection pushes people to do things beyond their normal capabilities. And when they look back, they would always say, how did I achieve this? It was because there was a great leader behind them who enabled that journey. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for your opening thoughts. And of course, there's no better way to start today's conversation. But then still staying with you, Madam Adeoti, right? Like I said today's conversation is going to be very practical, right? We're not here to give speeches and all of that. So I'll be very practical right now and maybe a bit personal, right? Now, talking about, now everybody on this call is an HR leader at some level, right? Now, for you as an HR leader, when did you first realize that your work as an HR leader was about something bigger than the organization you were serving, right? And was there a defining experience that shifted your thinking?
Okay. Two major instances that I can speak to. The first one was when I knew that I wanted to have a global footprint, and I realized that I wanted to do GPHR. I've told the story, it's also in my book. But that defining moment was more when I went for SHRM outside Nigeria. And the defining time was Lance Richards. Everybody is free to Google the guy. I met him, I had conversations. I saw that these were ordinary people like you and I. I saw that what they were doing, they were creating thought leadership frameworks that was shifting things globally. And the question is, why not me? And you know, that became a big deal for me, and I really pushed hard, you know, and that exposure left me very, very differently. But back home, I had a leader. I was in telecoms at the time. And there was this leader. We've had to go through loads of restructuring at the time. And he was an expatriate. I saw systematic disenfranchisement of our local engineers. I saw a hidden agenda, and I saw that if care is not taken, I will be used as an instrument to propagate that agenda. The other dimension of that is to the engineers. I saw that also they were being damaged psychologically. The works, they had built this network for what, 6, 7, 8 years. And this guy came in, and the manner in which he was going about stuff, you made them look like they lacked capacity and they lacked intellect. Like, you know, they didn't know what they were doing. And this was the same network that had generated revenue, that had sustained us and had pushed the GDP of a whole nation. So I stepped in, of course, for confidentiality, I can't state everything. I just had to realize that I had powers, and had powers, one, to escalate and take the issue, make available documentation, and also go through regulatory routes, because you had customs, and look into some of the issues and the things that were being done, just to be able to save not just the company itself, but the individuals, because the repercussion was going to be too great for us, even as a nation. And I stepped into that to put a halt into it. That took a lot of courage. That meant I put my own job on the line. I put my name on the line, but I stood for what I believed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing from your practical
by the way, I can confidently face those engineers today, because otherwise the question would have been, what were you doing? You wrecked our lives.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so building up on that, right, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi, I'd like to come to you. Now, recently, like the first Vice President of AEHRP mentioned earlier, there's been increasing conversations around a talent shortage within the country, right? Reference to making indirect reference to one of the CEOs of the fast-growing financial institutions. Now, from your perspective, are we truly facing a shortage of talent, or a shortage of leaders capable of developing and retaining talent?
Thank you, Prince, for that question. I think we are actually dealing with the death of developed leaders, and not the death of capable people. I believe we have capable people, but we don't have, we seem not to have developed leaders. And we need to differentiate these, in our organizations. Many of our leaders, and in a lot of organizations, we keep extracting values from talented people, but we are not investing meaningfully, in their growth. We keep demanding things from values, impact from people, from talents, but we are not pouring back. We are not investing back in those talents. And we expect that we will have a pipeline, but we don't realize that those pipelines are becoming empty, because we are drawing from the pipeline and we are not feeding back into that pipeline. And then we are beginning to complain that the pipelines are empty. And this is, for me, is something that is crucial. Many organizations today, in terms of the B's, in talent management, many of us are just focused on buying talents. A lot of organizations have left building talents. And because of that, we are just in the market and we are all crying. There is talent war, there are few talents, but really, the talents that are available, what has happened to them? When the talent finds out that we are not really investing in them as much as we have taken from them, what do? They move out to other clients where they believe that they can invest in them and then they can, they can build back what we have taken from them. So for me, I think it's more of, the death of leaders who are willing and able to pour themselves into, others and help others to grow and develop capacity rather than just keep on taking. Nigeria, we always say that, a country of over 200 million people with great talents, with about the highest population of young people, young employable people, in the world. It is difficult to accept that you don't have talent because these same people, they leave the shores of the continent and then they move out there and then we start hearing the wonderful things that they are doing. And then we then want to then, be associated with them. But they left here. That talent was in them, has always been in them before they left here. But how come we could not harness it, enable it, such that it can be out there? So I think it's more about enabling the talent, unlocking the opportunities for the talent, and then developing the talent. Rather than thinking that there's dearth of talent. No, I don't believe we have dearth of talent. I believe it's about leadership, investing in the talent and developing more talent, building more talent. Rather than for us to keep on taking and then we suddenly find out that that pipeline that we've been drawing from is becoming empty. And then we begin to complain. For me, it's about long-term investments, not the short-term, quick fixes, indomie things. You just want to go out there, you have a problem, you just want to go and buy. Just buy the talent, come and fix the problem, and that's it. And then whenever another issue comes up again, we are running helter-skelter. How about building enough, having a very strong bench strength that can sustain the business and create that succession pipeline for our businesses? I think that is where the issue is for me. It's not, for me, it's not so much about that we have capable people, we have great talent, but it's about the leadership, developing, investing more in building more talent, and of course, unlocking the potentials in our talent. Thank you very much, Prince.
So much. That's a very, very interesting response, and thank you so much. Now, still talking about talent, right? And but this time, let's talk about the consequences of leadership with regards to talent, and speaking specifically about talent migration. Madam Sheyi, now, when brilliant professionals leave organizations, right, which we have continued to see, or even leave Nigeria entirely because of poor leadership, where does that loss actually end up? And who ultimately bears the long-term cost of these brilliant professionals?
Okay, you're going to help me here. I've been experiencing something where I kind of have this undulation I don't hear. And so I'm hearing a few of your words, but I'm going to try and articulate what I think you're asking me.
Do you want me to go over it again? Is it okay if I go over it again?
Yes, it's okay if you can go over it again.
All right. So when brilliant professionals leave organizations, right, or even leave Nigeria entirely, due to poor leadership, right, where does that loss actually end up? Who ultimately bears the long-term cost of this talent loss?
Brain drain.
Yes.
Okay, the nation actually bears it because in the OD corridor, we always talk about the fact that OD is about organizations being an open system, right? And so you begin to say you're taking resources from the ecosystem that the organization belongs in, which is the microenvironment or the macro environment. And you are utilizing those resources that develops the value that the organization creates and then push it out to the same ecosystem. So when the brain drain actually affects the entire nation. And invariably, the organizations that are supposed to create value within the society that are supposed to also create the jobs. So when you do not have the equipped or the experience or the competent talents that would help to create and refine that value. Because don't forget, when we keep talking about competency framework, you have them, it's stratified. So the fact that you say, oh, but there are people, I mean, I've been in the HR corridor since 1997 or 1998 there and about, and I moved into management in HR in, I think, 2001, been doing consulting now for 16 years. So most times, particularly coming to my consulting experience, when we are doing recruitments, and it's difficult for us to get some talents. And then you're hearing talent employers of labor say, but there are people looking for jobs. For us, just like Yemi says, that it's not as if there are no talents, there are talents. But do we have them in the proficiency that will require them to be able to create those values? So when those professionals leave, then we have the gap of how do we develop these younger ones, or I want to shy away from using younger ones. I want to say the less equipped individuals. So you then have situations like the CEO of MoneyPoint keeps talking about, because it's a national problem right now. It's no longer HR problem. It's no longer the business environment problem. It is a national problem that both the government and the entire society of governance needs to begin to address. Unfortunate for us, I was at an event yesterday and today, and a lot of these discussions were happening, and I was surprised, and it really gratified me to hear that cosmetic surgery in that industry, that you have a lot of people in diaspora actually having to want to come back this way to do it. So you're having a lot of all these foreign medical doctors coming back home. But yet, in our own local general hospitals and all, you can't find doctors. So who is suffering it? It's a national thing. So for us, it's not something that the HR community alone can handle. It's something that government needs to sit in, because what is making them leave? The other countries are creating remember I said something about great leadership. That great leadership for me, it's about you being able to identify, you being able to inspire, you being able to empower, you being able to enable. So you can say the entire leadership itself is a system. It's a system. And if at that point in time, it is a national problem, not a sectorial problem. No, it's a national problem. And it's something that we all need to put hands together with government. Oh, I hear organizations will say, why are people leaving? Creates retention. I mean, I'm working with an organization right now, and we are saying we want to start the graduate trainee program to design it. Oh, the organization I work for, the organization is doing something with one of the big IOCs on the gas project, and we're saying something about this, and the managing director, which is right, is worried about if we invest so much in these young folks that we're bringing in, how do we retain them? How do we retain them? Yes, the organization can do so much, but it becomes a national thing for a policy issue, an infrastructural issue at the government level. So we have to start engaging them at that higher level of our apex institutions and institutions like AEHRP that needs to start playing the role more of advocacy. We need to leave the table of we're only just equipping and developing HR practitioners. We need to start engaging government on advocacy so that we can actually be able to address this issue hands in glove together.
Thank you so much for that charge to HR professionals and also to organizations like AEHRP and other Apex HR regulatory bodies as well. Still talking about leadership and the role of HR. Madam Adeotie, I would like to come to you. Now, we talk about accountability a lot, right? And hold people accountable. Now, where does HR find the courage to hold leaders accountable, especially in environments where HR's own influence often depends on the goodwill of these same leaders? And how do we as HR professionals also sustain that courage consistently?
Okay, thank you very much. Just permit me to tip in on my co-panelists' conversation just a bit. I think we really need to define talent. When we define talent, then we can position. Do we have hands in country that are unemployed, available to work? The answer is yes. But when you begin to talk about talent, you begin to talk about ability, potential, and application of that ability beyond average level. Keyword, beyond average level. And when you begin to talk about that, that begins to change the dimension altogether. I absolutely agree with Sheyi that this is a national issue. We are not looking at from the end of production to consumption. That's a different conversation altogether. But on the issue of accountability and courage with leadership in the organization, I would say this. First and foremost, before you can hold anybody accountable to anything, who are you by standards? Have you lived that standards? Are you a role model of the standards you want to hold somebody else accountable for? And that's a major challenge. What we see nowadays is do as I say, not do as I do. That's a major disconnect. And you see, when you're authentic, people can feel it. People know the difference between the person who is authentic or not. And that's my number one charge to HR practitioners. Never let anyone have to second guess what your character is and what you stand for. The minute I can second guess it, you cannot hold anyone to any accountability standards whatsoever. Why? Because there's an opening in your own wall where they would leverage on and throw the stones back at you. The second dimension of that is once you have cleaned out on integrity standards and you being a role model, it's influence. It's not everything that is documented. You know, what I have found is in our role as practitioners, you must have the capacity to influence. But for you to influence colleagues, to influence either up, down, sideways, because that's the role that HR plays, you must be someone who is absolutely competent and value has been seen in you. That's the truth. You would only sit down to listen to someone who has value, who has given valuable advice that turned the dial within the business. Otherwise, what conversation am I having with you? How do you talk about accountability? Accountability on what? Exactly. So as you work on being a role model, first of all, cleaning out your own backyard, the next phase will be to look at it and build the right relationships. Because in relationships, you can then go, when you say it, you see, Olabo, when you say sorry, there's a male and there's a female version of it. Let me give you a practical example. I was talking to one of the CEOs who genuinely made an error on an issue, okay? And I needed to correct her. I wasn't going to speak with her openly, but I waited also for that opportunity. And the way I said it, I just said, so they call me Momiwa. And when they say Momiwa, and then I will say, you know, and I will then use the word that Momiwa is our mommy, Olori is our head, you know, for the non-Yoruba speaking. And then I then speak to you, and then I say that, you know, that when there's a father in the house and the father says, this is how we do in our own house, who then has to do this? But everybody is looking at daddy. And when I gave that analogy to her, and I said, tomorrow, 2-3 people will come in this and do the same thing. You know, you won't be able to talk. You know, the reaction was, oh, I didn't know it was. Now, was I accusing her directly? No. But I was talking about standard. I was talking about role modeling. But that enabled her to take it because she sees that this is a standard. And so in that, she became, I held her to a standard of accountability, but with diplomacy and tact. But the only reason I could apply diplomacy and tact, you know, is because of the relationship I have built, is because of the value, is because of the quality of strategic advisory services she has received from me in time past. So she knows that if I am speaking of something, it means that this thing is a big deal for me to talk about it, because you would leverage, or you can't come and put a house on a roof that has no foundation. That's the point. So when you fix this, then you can be sure that you can then begin to have the courage to stand up and make someone accountable. Thank you.
Thank you for those wonderful thoughts. And of course, Momiwa, is it okay to continue to call you Momiwa now?
No, don't call me Momiwa. That's just an example. Please call me Kumbi Adiote. I'm absolutely comfortable with it. Kumbi is fine.
All right, fantastic. At this juncture, I'd like to also have Dr. Michael Ogu add his voice to this talent conversation, right? Especially the role of leaders and the accountability for the level of talent that we have in our organizations and the nation at large. Dr. Michael Ogu, are you here with us? Would you please
yes, I am.
add your thoughts?
Good evening, everyone. And
Good evening.
Amazing conversations by our erudite speakers. Thank you so much to Yemi Ajayi, Kumbi Adeoti, and Seyi Olulade. And as I listened to them, a couple of thoughts flashed through my mind. And I like the fact that Kumbi said, the standards we hold other people to, are we held ourselves accountable to those same standards? So something happened to me recently. I think I told the first vice president and a few people. I'd sent in a proposal for a particular program for an organization. They wanted me to come and do a leadership development program. One of the courses that needed to be taken was ethics. And after sending in the proposal, the HR manager calls me to say, I need to make money. So therefore, you would need to send a revised proposal with the amount I need to make on top. The following day, I sent a message, sorry, there's no way that can happen, you know. And so when I shared it with the first vice president, Tolu Ajayi, was like, How did that even happen in the first place? But the reality is that's a sad experience in the HR space. Let's not even go beyond HR first. So the standards we want to hold, whether local government leaders, state leaders, national leaders, have we held ourselves to that same standard? Let's even come back to the CIPM Code of Conduct or General Code of Conduct. I tell people that most often times when we look at the mirror, the person who can tell us the truth is the person in the mirror. The moment the voice of your conscience can no longer tell you the truth, then there is a problem as a leader. One of the things that happened to me recently as I was reflecting on my career experiences was I've deliberately made some mistakes, but then again, how have I used those mistakes to learn? And so when we look at the issues of accountability, 3 things are important as I wrap up, Prince. First is awareness, and awareness on 3 levels: self-awareness, situational awareness, and cognitive awareness. So the first is awareness. The second is authenticity, and I think Kumbi and Shea and Yemi have alluded to that, all right? The truth is you cannot be truly accountable if you are not authentic, all right? So there's awareness, there's authenticity. And I'll close with the 3rd A, which is taking the cognizant actions, or what we say corresponding actions in our day-to-day realities and in our day-to-day conversations. A few months ago, I was having a personal conversation with Shea, and I said, it's like we've lost certain values and virtues within our HR space, all right? And the truth is, if you take a rain check of a lot of CEOs today, some of the issues that they find difficult to trust HR leaders and HR practitioners with, some of us are guilty of them, Prince. Some of us are very guilty of them. So one of the things that we must ask ourselves is, what are those daily actions? Someone mentioned habits. I don't know if it was Shea or Kumbi. What are those daily habits that we must begin to put in place that will make us stand out, that will make us be different? As little as how you converse with your driver, as little as how you converse with a housemate, even as little for those of us who have children, as little as how we converse with our children. I'll close with something that happened to me recently. So I have a 4-year-old daughter turning 5. And something happened recently that she said, Daddy, you were not supposed to do that thing because it was wrong. Guess what? I had to apologize to my 4-year-old daughter, and it then dawned on me that really the best way to be a leader is to set the example. Like Kumbi said, not do as I say, but do as I do, So she said to me, you were not supposed to do that thing. So I apologized and said, okay, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. And then I had to recoil back and say, yes, they grew up in a different generation. Don't forget, this generation of young kids are growing up with smart devices. But guess what? They are watching everything we do. Make no mistake, they are watching. So it's awareness, situational awareness, self-awareness, cognitive awareness, authenticity. Who are you at your core? What are your values? What are your beliefs? And then corresponding actions. What are the daily habits that set us apart? I think that the alignment or the congruence of these 3 A's will help us to stay true to ourselves when it comes to accountability. And Prince, make no mistake, accountability is not a buzzword. Accountability is supposed to be the actual standard that we should live by. We say leadership is example, leadership is influence. If it is in the fiber of your character, then it's easy for people to see that you are accountable. A few years ago, I had the privilege of changing 100,000 to 10 million. As tempting as that offer was, I just couldn't do it, because at the end of the day, I asked myself, I'm teaching ethics. Have I been ethical? Or I'm going to teach ethics, and have I been ethical? So we could go on and on and on, but the truth is, accountability starts with us. That thing you put on your to-do list, did you do it? If you're unable to do it, did you circle back to the person you were supposed to give a feedback to say, I'm sorry, I promised to deliver this thing, but for one or two reasons, I'm unable to pull through. If they are germane and genuine, then they will hold water. But you see, this accountability thing, it's deeper than what we see. All right, so I'll leave it at that. The other speakers have spoken eruditely and excellently. I would not want to overflog the issues. From my personal lens and personal experience, that is how it touches me deeply, personally, and that's how it resonates. Thank you so much, Prince.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emo, for sharing your thoughts on this conversation. And of course, leadership by example is very critical, not just as HR professionals, but as humans generally, because this conversation cuts beyond just the workplace, but even in our daily lives, like you mentioned. Now, still talking about HR professionals, right, and HR leaders. Now, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi, I'll come to you now. HR leaders are among the professionals closest to workforce realities, right? Now, why do you think HR voices are still underrepresented when national labor, education, and development policies are being shaped?
Thank you, Prince. That's a deep thought, right? How come that's when those conversations are going on, we are not there? I think something that resonates with me is that for us HR professionals, we hold enormous data, from several of our activities, data about skill gaps, data about attrition, data about, development failures, and all of these, a lot of policies and everything. But we seem to have difficulty in coming together to bring all these, insights together to form, a specific opinion on national issues and then push that position through in order to influence the policies of government. I think that's one area for me. Sometimes we have a narrow mindset of just operating within our organization. And we often forget that we are existing within an ecosystem, and whatever is happening within that ecosystem, especially external factors to our organization, but within our territorial environment of operation, have enormous impact over the operations of our business. So for me, until we learn ourselves, to profess a lot of things with public mandates, and not just our corporate function alone, not just focusing on what happens within our organization, within our industry alone, but when we focus our attention on national issues, and then we can aggregate our views. Yes, that's what I'm looking for, that we can aggregate our views on specific national issues and then advocate by pushing those views and pulling the views together, and then advocate to influence government policy in a particular direction. That is when we can be taken very seriously. For instance, something happens, in the country. There is insecurity and all of that in certain geopolitical zone of the country. For a lot of us that are operating within Lagos and just Abuja, the major capital cities, we don't see how this is affecting the talent pipelines to our organization, because we don't see how this affects diversity and inclusion, which is necessary for creativity and innovation within our organization. How many times do we have opportunity of having strong talent from the northern part of Nigeria, for example, as a result of a lot of them not being able to even go to schools because of the insecurity happening there? And because we don't feel affected, we are not coming together to say, hey, the education in those regions is suffering. Therefore, the talent pipeline is suffering, and our companies are being affected by that. For as long as we can go to other clients and just go and find alternative and all of those things, we've forgotten that we are neglecting opportunities for creativity, which of course diversity and inclusion will have provided for us. So really, for me, why we are not really being seen to be visible in the public space is mainly because we are not aggregating our views to push certain agenda of government in such a way that we can influence those decisions in favor of our industry, of our sectors, of our organization, but more importantly, in terms of human capacity development and human capital in the country. We can't continue to keep quiet. For every government policy, they all have significant implication on our various businesses. And it's time for us, a lot of time, we sit to just celebrate, just on the surface. What HR Day is coming on the 20th, by next week now. A lot of us, we are going to go on the streets, 5-kilometer walk, 3-kilometer walk, and all of those things. But those are opportunities for us to look at major policy issues that impacts unemployment, unemployability, and underemployment in the country. And then push position papers, after aggregating our views, push position papers to government and seek audience at the national level to table these things, offering solutions to policymakers, sitting down with them, either at the state level or at the federal level. So for me, these are the moments that they can take us seriously when we are able to push on those fronts, and not just when we sit back. We have Workers' Day earlier this year. For us, HR, did we just see it as just a labor unions kind of day? But did we see the opportunity to push certain national agenda with respect to human capacity development in the country? I think these are the issues for me, why I think that, policy development, this education design is suffering. We are not being there. We are not being called to it because ourselves, we are not taking this matter seriously and bringing our views together to push a frontier in order for us to be able to get government's attention and be able to be called, for us to now be called to the table to offer solutions. I think I will take a pause there. Thank you, Prince.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Adeyemi. As we begin to wrap up, Madam Sheolu, I don't know if you want to join, add your voice to the conversation around why HR professionals do not join or are not called to the table when discussing national issues around labor.
Why HR professionals do not what?
Why HR are not invited to the table when issues around national labor and development are being discussed.
Okay, for me, it's been, I love the question you've asked because it's one area I've been asking a lot of HR people that we've got to learn to see, the world and everything around us, not only from the lens of HR. In the developmental palace, they talk about whole system thinking and also design thinking, right? But whole system thinking look at everything from the bird eye or apex, point of view, how everything connects. And when it comes to micro level solution development, leaders at that point are not looking at it from just the people aspect. They are not looking for you to come and tell us where to get the right people, what are the policies to keep them, how do we deploy them. And they're not looking at it. They want to talk about economical issues. They want to talk about strategic issues. They want to talk about infrastructure, policy development, so many of those other things. And for you to earn a place at the table, then your knowledgeability has to come to bear. on all fronts. And you can start practicing that right now in the organizations where you work in. As you move along, you need to begin to understand business finance. I mean, if you're talking to your accountant, try to find out what accounting principle is. Yeah, if you're talking to the marketing communication person, even try to find out what that is all about, so that you're almost speaking their language. I studied mass comm, and what we're taught in journalism, we're taught to learn a little about everything and everything about the little that we know. So you don't see, you will never earn a space on that table if you're only speaking and you can only see things only from one lens. For you to get a place at the table, particularly at this national problem, solving the problems of the nation, it's not just, yes, we recognize that you're an expert in that area. But how aware, Emmanuel said something that, look, when you talk about accountability, you're looking at 3 thresholds as far as it's concerned. And one of those thresholds he mentioned was, which is very key, and those ones have, that threshold as children. He talked about how aware are you? How aware are you of the entire problem that we have? How can you even dimension it so much so that when you are talking to them, if you have 1 hour meeting with them, you are helping them to discuss their own problems, that by the time they have 5 minutes, you realize that when you say your own issues, even when you have not said anything, they are bought into all the things you want to say. So it's you're being aware of the whole system. How does all these components how does the corporate level strategy connect with the business level, with the products, with the production, with everything, with finance? Yes, you are beautiful and laudable. We HR people, we know how to come out and design program. Leave that one. Hey, program, I'm a designer. Sorry, excuse my French. We know how to design program. The question I want to ask you is, where's the money gonna come from? Oh, and then the next thing you hear, but I already have my budget approved. As the business made enough money to get that budget. The fact that they approved a 1 billion naira budget for you for that fiscal year does not mean that the business has that 1 billion naira as at even October. And all you have at your mindset is that I've done my budget. So you've got to be able to sit to them to understand at the organizational level, the entire system and how it connects. At that point, Kumbi was saying something the other time. Kumbi said, look, the value you bring to the table all the time, the consistency in your creating and bringing that authenticity of the value that you have is what they will continue to open their door to listen to you. And that value does not only come from one lens of HR. It comes from organizational system thinking. It comes from you understanding the stakeholders that you need to engage. It comes from you saying your resourcefulness. It comes from you being able to help every strata of the system to solve problems. Then you can earn that space at the table, at the organizational level. Now, at the national level, we've got to get out. That's why I said the other time, even AEHRP, we are ripe enough to leave this threshold of, we are shameless learners of HR. Beautiful, honestly, very beautiful. Now, can we take it a notch higher? How many of us are card holders of any party here? How many of us? Yes, politics is a dirty game. Well, I agree. But there are people inside that same place who are not. How many of us in every other area where they find us, maybe in your church, maybe in your mosque, maybe in your Buddhist temple, that you are involved? You are not attending, but you are very involved. How many of us? How many of us in our estates where we stay are involved in development there? How many of us that we don't carry HR on our head? Let them see you doing things. Then they can now ask, oh, what do you do? And then you can now say, oh, I'm the HR manager for so and so. Oh, you do HR. Now, they see you beyond that practice of yours. They see you as someone who is a nation builder, someone who is strategic in their thinking. So we've got to leave that level. And this thing has nothing to do with when I get to that level up there as a management HR person. I mean, a lot of us went to university. All of us went to university here. Some of us were involved in student union. Some of us were involved in different things. We're in fellowship, we're involved with all those places. Let's start making a difference there. And then you will now start seeing sponsors. Someone reached out to me recently, oh, we have your number. We want to invite you on a board of something. It's a public this thing. I'm like, me, I don't want that. While I can manage, I can coach people from behind. I can help from behind. I don't want to be involved with anybody like that. I'm not interested. And somebody said to me that, what do you mean by that? You have to be interested. You understand? So you've got to come out of, I'm just HR, because you find people everywhere. You don't have to wear that HR cap to be able to solve problems and lead and influence people. You have people everywhere. So when you say human resource, we shouldn't look at human resource from the perspective of it must be used between a structured and formal setting. No, we have human resource on your streets. How are they feeling your impact? Where they can now begin to speak for you and bring your names up at tables that matter or even tables that don't matter. So we should go beyond. I've said one. Lastly, let me just help to paraphrase what I've said. Become a system thinking person, a whole system thinking individual in your organization. 2, get involved outside of your organization in every area of spheres of your life, even in your family. Don't join them to create problems. Help them to solve the problem. 3, wherever you stay, let them feel your impact. We should come out, and that's the next thing. I'm not home right now. I'm sitting in, there's a party going on downstairs. I had to ask for somebody's apartment. I had to come and stay here. I've been talking to a gentleman and I thought it was interesting. And after we've spoken for almost 30 minutes, I just said, oh, so what do you do? Then he now told me what he did. Some people are not going to ask you who is HR. No. If you want a seat at the table, you must learn. The social space is a place of value creation and you serve value there. You must show them and project yourself as somebody that has value to give. And then you can earn a right at the table. I was speaking to a group recently. I was saying, oh, executive presence, your looks will get you at the door. When you open your mouth to tell them and they can tell that you have value, it gets you through that door. And then when you continue to speak and you can make sense, you're able to connect to all of them. I heard somebody use the word connection. Then you will earn a seat at the table. So I hope this was able to, I was able to help answer your question on that. I'm sorry, guys, I have to ask for you to relieve me. I need to get on to a meeting in the next 10 minutes and I need to prepare. Thank you so much, AEHRP, for having me. Thank you, Kumbi. Mommy, you know I love you. My brother, Adebs, I love you, bro. I love you guys. Thank you, AEHRP. Thank you, Dr. Ogu. Thank you, Antolu. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you
for your time on this conversation and adding your voice to this conversation as well. So just to wrap up, Madam Adeoti, right? Just to wrap up, we've spoken honestly today about leadership gaps. We've spoken about culture failures, right? And of course, we stressed accountability and courage as well. So, what is the one leadership behavior HR professionals must urgently stop normalizing inside organizations? And do you think that the profession sometimes confuses diplomacy with silence?
So yeah, I'm struggling when you say what we should stop normalizing, because I am not an advocate of bad behavior. So I don't know what to really say to stop normalizing. But I think what I want to say to that would be that we need to start to identify every individual in the organization as a unique person and understand them within the context of their unique capabilities. That is vital. People are going through life journey with different situations and circumstances, and as such, you can't afford to treat them the same way. When I use that word, so for example, people go through pregnancies. For some, they don't feel anything, and for some, it nearly takes their life out. So you cannot say that it is the same for everybody. And this is the reason why our fingerprints are unique. As a leader in the organization, you must understand the unique value that individuals that you connect to, or circumstances and situations that come before you, and how you choose the lenses at which you address those situations. Please take it as the norm. Try to understand context. Yes, we have policies, but with policies, we must also be agile, we must also be flexible, and we must also understand that it's human being first. And so how do you navigate the structure within the organization to enable people when they go through different and unique circumstances? That is what is important. You cannot be so process-oriented. You cannot be so straight-jacketed. And this is why we're talking to you, because you're supposed to be emotive, you're supposed to be human. You're not the AI that we give a prompt, and based on the prompt, it garbages something out to us. No. That's why you have the empathy. That is why you have the emotional intelligence to see beyond that which has been said. And so please bring all of that to fore, in dealing with people. In the quest for silence and diplomacy, they are two different things. However, in the place to play diplomacy, silence can be a tool that may be employed. They are absolutely two different things. So silence could be utilized as a tool, because when you are in certain rooms, there's things that you don't say so that you don't even damage the situation. Silence in that situation is diplomatic tact to keep things going. And there other time that silence is, you can't look at a situation that is oppressive, that is deliberating to the workforce, that is silently edging away people's self-esteem, and you think it's diplomacy to keep quiet. No, that's not diplomacy. Then we should be asking you, what code of conduct you swore with CIPM as a professional body that is supposed to regulate the practice of human resource in country. And so that would be my submission, Prince.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Kumbi Adeoti. Thank you so much, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi. And of course, thank you to Seyi Olulade as well. This conversation has been deeply insightful, right? Courageous, and I must say, incredibly necessary. But before we transition into taking participant questions and contributions, I would like to do something slightly different, right? Interestingly, we have amongst us today leaders who are not only shaping organizations, but who are also actively shaping the future direction of the HR profession in Nigeria. And so as we begin to wrap up this summit, I would like to invite a few closing reflections, not just on leadership within organizations, but on leadership within the profession itself that we practice in, which is the human resource profession. And I'd like to start with Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi. So it's public knowledge that you are vying for the position of the National Treasurer of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, CIPM. And as we wrap up in about 3 minutes, can you tell us why you believe that you are the right person for this responsibility and what the profession should expect from your leadership if elected?
Prince, that's that question was sudden. Okay. For me, HR is not just a profession. It's not just work. For me, it's a calling. It's a ministry. And because I bring my total self and my total being into this profession, it has also translated to my engagement, in the regulatory institution for the profession. And because of this, for close to 2 decades now, I've been involved in various leadership positions for our institute. At the chapter level, that's which we used to call PPCA, back in 2015, I had the opportunity of leading one of the biggest chapters, the Lagos Island chapter. I went into the chapter to meet a deficit of about 860,000 naira thereabout back then, as a result of certain events that was held, and they had lent some money to do the event, and I was had to go and clean that up. My background in business administration with strong financial acumen and knowledge of finance management was brought to bear in a space of just about 12 to 16 months. We were able to turn that deficit around and left the chapter on the path of financial sustainability, winning the best chapter award in the process. I moved over to the branch at the branch level, and I had to, also recreate a similar situation. In fact, the period of COVID was during the time that I find myself in a position of leadership. And through innovation, we had to, hold a conference then for the first time. We had to have a virtual conference. And we had to do a lot of financial engineering to ensure that we did not run at a loss while we still pay salaries, pay rent, and all of that. And we still left, the branch on the path of financial sustainability, also winning the best branch award at the national level. Those are track records. At the national level, this also attracted the attention of leadership at national level. And I was called upon in 2020 during COVID to lead one of the biggest events of the institute. Again, innovation came to play. We had to deploy innovation again to host the first fully virtual conference of our institute also there. And in the process, through financial engineering, creativity, and prudence, we returned over 100%, revenue surplus for that conference. We repeated this again at, the following year at the first hybrid conference, coming up with over 26% in terms of revenue surplus. All of these are based on we talk about skills today, talk about competence and all of that. If you do not have the financial competence and business acumen, you will not be able to manage projects at that level and be able to deliver, especially under pressure, under extreme situations. These are some of the qualities that I bring to bear. And right now, I've also been able to handle the digital transformation project of our institute in the last 4 years. And we've seen how CIPM, how we have been able to move to the global stage. And the exponential, increase in the enrollment for examination, the financial membership base has also moved by almost about 106% in terms of members who are now financially active in the institute. because we deploy technology to make sure that services are more accessible to people across the globe. All of these puts me in the right stead to vie for the position of National Treasurer of the Institute. What am I bringing, what are we to look forward to? Is about repositioning our institute towards a 5 billion naira revenue target within the first year and chasing a 10 billion revenue for the institute in terms of our solid asset base, for financial sustainability, because we need to play in that bigger space, with CIPD, with our mutual recognition with CIPD, with CPHR and SHRIM, on the pipeline. We cannot in any way be playing at a lower level. We are now at a global stage, and we need leaders who have that right knowledge, the skill, the competency, who have the integrity, who have track record of results to be able to deliver this. That is the reason why I'm running for the office of National Treasurer of our institute, to add more value, make more impact, and put our institute on the path of financial sustainability. Thank you very much, Prince.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi, FCIPM. Madam Kumbi Adeoti, FCIPM, you are vying for the position of Vice President of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. Now, why are you stepping forward at this moment? And what should HR professionals, and most especially CIPM members, expect from your leadership vision if elected?
Thank you, Prince. First and foremost, I want to applaud the forerunners who have gone ahead of me. I don't take lightly the work they have done. And so I celebrate what they have done to push the Institute forward. But I am coming out at this point in time. It's more about a burden. And that burden, we've had conversation here on it, right? In the last 1 hour, 30 minutes, thereabouts, that we've been on this call. One critical thing is CIPM playing as a voice of advocacy at the level that it should play today in our country, seeing what we have seen in terms of the capacity of the workforce of our nation. And this is a question that we all really need to ask ourselves, genuinely, knowing that this is something we need to address. We currently have an act that empowers us in terms of the workforce, and at the same time in terms of building membership, and at the same time in terms of the regulatory function. I think it's high time we started doing it very differently. And we all hold licenses. What is the weight behind our licenses with our CEOs, with organization, with leadership, even across the nation? And please don't misquote me. A lot, like I said, I applaud the work that has been done. I think it's time to move from what is routinous to strategic influences, where we begin to take seats and drive the influence in decision-making in this country, particularly in terms of the workforce. Today, I recall about a few months ago, there were conversations that were being held, and if CIPM wasn't called to the table, the question is why? How have we positioned? Have we put ourselves up as the most competent, the most capable? We drive conversations in the different organizations, whether public or private sector that we are in. How come at the national seat, we're not sitting there? We're not looking at the pipeline, the production that I mentioned earlier, right from the primary school into the tertiary institutions. Yemi was talking some few minutes ago about talent, and I dare say, he said there's no lack of talent. But I also ask myself, why do we keep doing graduate training? Why do we keep doing management training? There's an absolute disconnect between what is being produced in our tertiary institutions and what is flowing, what is being produced and what is required. Can we readily say that Nigeria of today is ready for the future of work that is now upon us, and even how that future of work is evolving, and the role that we should play in that? Are we really playing in it? Have we moved for even the enactment of laws on artificial intelligence and the ethics around it, knowing that we are the regulatory body? We've had people, I was in a session before now where the concerns was about AI taking people's jobs. The ethics and the regulatory requirements around that, has it been enacted, and how have we positioned ourselves to be able to drive this? Today, if you ask the average CIPM member, what is the real value proposition that they can take away? Yes, there are value propositions. There's, of course, the insurance, there's the eyes, but there is more that can be done, that each and every CIPM member working in the streets of Nigeria can proudly hold out their head and say, yes, this institute, I know it is for me. And so, of course, we can reposition because of the massive intellect that exists within our institute as of today. So for me, it's about how do we get onto the stronger regulatory structure, knowing that the capacity of the people who are holding the conversations, from the experience and the things that they have done in their organizations that speaks for them, is outstanding. That when they stand before the leaders in this nation, they will stand up to listen to them and hear them and know what they are saying is the truth, because it is not born out of talk. It is about driving organizations that have, that have budgets of trillions in their coffers and are doing things greatly. How do we deepen professional capacity? Now, we've seen a whole lot. I know there's the ready to market, but and the different trainings that have been done. But deepening capacity should also go to the HQ team. We're demanding a lot for them. I think by structural design, we really need to take a look at some of the things that we're making demands on, and then the respective tools that should be available to members, to be effective in their current organizations. How do we make that exist? Of course, readily, there's a lot going on in terms of digitization program within the institute. How do we ensure that we take that exponentially forward? And then, of course, looking at members in itself, how much can we put around self-service, member service, that you can beat your chest and say, this is where we are. There's the journey ahead. And I believe that I am well positioned to be able to deliver on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Kumbi Adeoti. Finally, Dr. Michael Ogo, if you're on the call, please confirm.
Yes, I'm still on the call, Prince.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Doctor, you're also stepping forward for re-election as an elected council member of CIPM. Now, what is driving that decision for you, and what contributions are you hoping to make and continue to make to the future of the profession and the institute at large?
All right, thank you so much, Prince. So let me start by saying, of what use will be the institute's gains and victories on all frontiers if members know nothing about those gains and those progresses we've made on frontiers? Somebody says no one winks in the dark. That means that progress does not happen in isolation. Over the last 2 years, I've had the privilege of chairing the Institute's Communications, Brand Management, and Public Relations Committee. That's the committee saddled with the strategic communications architecture and driving visibility both locally and globally. And for me, what's driving the re-election bid is the 3 C's: consolidation, curriculum enhancement, and then, of course, capacity development. In terms of capacity development, one of the things that I have been a part of is shaping the communities of practice that will go live any moment from now, with the Research and Publications Committee, as well as, redefining how we see HR value here in Nigeria. I was part of the pioneering team that put together the maiden edition of the CIPM HR Practice Needs Report. We want to take that further to ensure that our members can derive value, derive insights, to ensure that they have some sort of roadmap on HR trends and develop their capabilities to help them add value to their organization. On the curriculum development side, I also served on the specialist communications, specialist curriculum development committees for the HR Leadership Academy, for the design of the L&D and the performance management certifications. There is plans to look into other certifications. And of course, I would want to continue to add that curriculum development expertise for the Institute. Lastly, in terms of communications architecture, to ensure that we continue to secure more media partnerships so that we can strengthen the voice of the Institute, both within Nigeria and outside Nigeria. So that's the reason why I want to seek re-election, and to ensure that, we finish what we've started, and also ensure that our members stay in touch. It will not be good if members don't know what is going on in the Institute. And I dare say, Prince, every administration sees communication as a strategic tool. All right. Even in the whole electioneering process, communication has been a major tool. The Institute has had to communicate timelines and all of that. So communication is very key. And I want to ensure that that tool, the Institute can continue to use that tool to advance its vision and mission. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michael Ogu. And of course, we wish everyone contesting the very best in the forthcoming CIPM elections, from Dr. Michael Ogu to Madam Kumbi Adeoti, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi as well. As we wrap up, we want to say thank you to all our distinguished speakers. It's been a wonderful experience today, moderating this session and also hearing each and every one of you contribute to the conversations around the leadership, around our organizations, the institutions, and of course, national development in itself. Due to the time, we may not be able to take questions from our participants today like we typically do. Our time is already fast spent. Once again, thank you so much on behalf of the Global President, the Global Advisory Council, Board of Trustees, and the management committees of AEHRP. We'd like to thank you to the speakers. And at this juncture, I'd like to invite the first Vice President, Mr. Mudru Toluwa Ajayi, who started this conversation, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Prince, and thank you to all our speakers, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi, FCIPM, Kumbi Adeoti, FCIPM, Michael Ogu, MCIPM, and of course, Sheyi Lade, for this particular, for honoring our invite, and then for the insightful conversations that we've had today around the topic, great leadership, the impetus for human capital and national development. And I believe that those who have been on the call can testify of the fact that they've had their lenses changed, and they've had maybe their thoughts challenged, and paradigms that they've held before this session challenged, to begin to have a rethink as to leadership, begin to have a rethink about accountability, the point of leading ourselves, and then of course stepping outside of our HR hats, like Sheyi Lade would say, to stepping into other areas where you're more visible, you're more responsible as a citizen, and knowing the fact that how you shape organizations and the infrastructure of leadership that you put in place in your organization has a trickle effect, however minute it is, to what goes on nationally. I want to end with a quote I heard many years ago, and it says, lobbying is about foresight. And I'm saying that word because we have come to a place where we need to have foresight regarding national development. We need to have foresight regarding leadership in our organizations, and then position ourselves strategically to begin to either activate or execute what is necessary. On behalf of the entire Mancom, again, I want to say thank you to all our speakers. Thank you to everyone on the call who have listened and who I believe will take the learnings from today and begin to do things with them. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you once again, and Prince, over to you.